Today's video is going to be a little bit different than my usual sewing videos because today I'm going to be making my very first pair of shoes. Hi there, I'm Carmen. Welcome to my channel, and like I said, today I'm going to be making a pair of shoes. This is not something that I've done before, but I am very excited to give it a try. So the other day I was scrolling on Etsy and I came across this Etsy shop called A Happy Stitch that sells espadrille kits, and they looked super cute. So basically I was like, I really have to make a pair. So of course I bought a kit. Here it is. It has not been opened yet. I am really hoping that this does not turn into a disaster and that these shoes work out because they looked super cute in the product photos. So let's go ahead and open this kit up, see what we've got, and hopefully make some shoes. Let's open this thing up. It's all just packaged so adorably, I don't want to rip it, but we're gonna go for it. I guess this is my fabric. And the soles. Instructions, very helpful, as well as the pattern. In here we have needle pullers, which this looks like something so you don't rip your fingers up trying to pull the needle through the thick fabric. Thread. This must be the point turner, I think. Pins. Oh, these must be the needles. There's a curved one too, that's interesting. Oh, this must be the wax. Not 100% sure what the wax is used for, but it's on the list and here it is. So we will see as we get into this. Here we are. I guess let's get to sewing. Alright, first things first, let's cut out the pattern. So there's only these two pieces that we need to cut out, and I'm just going to cut it out in my size, which is a size 40. Here we go, got our two pieces, and now we need to cut out all the pieces from the fabric and the interfacing and the lining, which I found was actually rolled into the fabric. So this is the outer fabric and then the lining and interfacing. So for both of these pieces we need to cut 2 of the outer fabric, 2 of the lining fabric, and 4 of the interfacing. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. There appears to be enough fabric here that I can kind of play around with the placement of the pattern pieces. I don't know, so I thought maybe I would make sure that, say, this set of flowers is on the toe of both pieces. So maybe cut the first one here and the next one here. Not sure if it really matters, but I might give it a try. Maybe I'll do this set of flowers. My toe pieces. So there's my heel pieces, and now I'm just going to cut out 2 more of each out of the lining and then 4 from the interfacing. Got all my pieces cut out, and now I just need to apply interfacing to each of the pieces. So I have them all facing wrong side up because you don't want the interfacing on the right side of the fabric. And then I'm just going to fuse the bumpy side of the interfacing onto the wrong side of the fabric of each of these pieces. So the instructions for this interfacing were a little bit different than other fusible interfacings I've used. Usually they have you place the fabric like this with the interfacing on top on the ironing board, and then put a damp cloth over the top and then iron over the cloth. But the instructions for this say to get your interfacing in place, then flip the fabric over like this so that the fabric is on top on the ironing board, and then just iron directly on top of the fabric without using the damp cloth at all. So we're gonna give it a try. So I got all my interfacing in. And guys, that interfacing is awesome. I really like not having to use the damp cloth and then waiting for my pieces to dry, and it's just so much faster and easier. So I really would love to know if anyone knows what kind of interfacing this is, because there wasn't anything in the kit on like what brand of interfacing this is. But if you do know what kind of interfacing this is that you don't have to use the damp cloth on, I would love to know. You can leave it in the comments and let me know. So anyways, let's go on with making the shoes. Alright, so now we can start sewing, and I got the pins out, so I thought I might as well use the pins that came with the kit, right? So I have the pins, and I'm going to place one of the outer fabric toe pieces right sides together with one of the lining toe pieces, like so. And then I'm going to do the same with the other set, so right sides together. And I'm going to do the same thing with the heel pieces, outer fabric heel piece, right sides together with one of the lining heel pieces, and the same thing with the other set. Then I'm just going to pin all the way around all of the edges of all 4 of these pieces. Now I'm going to take these to my sewing machine, and I'm going to sew around all of the edges of all 4 of these pieces, but on each piece I'm going to leave about a 3-inch opening where it can be turned right sides out. So now I'm going to go ahead and trim the seam allowances. So I'm going to trim the corners on each of these pieces, and then trim the seam allowances by about half, except for where the opening is. Alright, seam allowances are trimmed. Now let's go ahead and turn all these pieces right sides out. So here's one toe piece that, So here is one toe piece that's been turned right sides out. And now I'm gonna go in with the point turner, and I'm gonna go ahead and just try to push these corners out a bit so that they're more sharp and nice. So here we have the first toe piece. So now I'm gonna go ahead and repeat that to turn all 4 of these pieces right sides out. So now I'm gonna take these to my iron and I'm just going to iron them flat. And I'm gonna also make sure that when I iron them flat that in these openings I iron the raw edges to the inside so that we have a nice continuous curve. Alright, my pieces are all pressed nice and flat, and that is one thing that I absolutely love about cotton and linen woven fabrics like this, is how beautifully nice they press. Isn't that just great? Anyways, now we need to close up the openings that we left to turn them right sides out. So I'm just going to go to my sewing machine and I'm just going to top stitch just right along the edge there, just to close up the openings. So I'm going to do that on each of these pieces so that we can close up all those openings with top stitching. Alright, so now we need to attach the heel pieces to the toe pieces, and this part of the instructions was a little bit hard for me to understand because it says to pin the inside of the heel to the inside of the toe with an overlap of 5/8 inch, matching the bottom of the heel portion with the bottom edge of the toe portion. So to me, matching the inside of the heel to the inside of the toe would be either like this or like this, where the insides are touching. But based on the photo, here, let me show you the photo. So this is the photo. Based on that, I think what they're trying to say is actually to pin it like this, basically overlapping the heel piece on the inside of the toe piece. So I'm gonna go ahead and pin these. I'm gonna make sure that they're overlapping by 5/8 of an inch. So I really hope I'm doing this right, but this makes the most sense to me. So I have this pinned. Now I'm gonna go ahead and do the other one. So now I'm just gonna go in and I'm just gonna top stitch along this entire front edge, and I'm gonna do a double row of top stitching. So I'm gonna go once right along the edge, and then I'm gonna move in about 1/8 of an inch from that and then do another row of top stitching. And I'm gonna do that on both shoes. All right, here they are. So they're now ready to be put on the soles. So we are getting close. So now we need to find where the center part of the bottom edge of the back of the shoe is. So I'm gonna fold it in half and I'm just lining up all of these edges and then finding the center of the back of the shoe, and I'm gonna put a pin there to mark it. Now I have the sole and I need to find where the center of the back of the sole is. So it lines up here with these lines on my cutting mat. So this would be the center. So now I'm gonna match up the center of the fabric part of the shoe with the center of the sole, and I'm just gonna pin the fabric directly to the sole, just pushing the pin down through the fabric and down into the rope part of the shoe. And then I'm just gonna go out from that center part and continue pinning the bottom edge of the fabric part of the shoe to the sole. There we go, the whole heel is pinned. It's starting to look like a shoe. There's one shoe ready to go. So now I'm gonna just repeat that process for the other shoe. My shoes are pinned and we are ready to start sewing them together. This is the very last step, so we're getting close, but we have a lot of hand stitching ahead of us. So here I have the thread, and I need to measure out 90 inches of thread. So I'm gonna just measure it out here on my cutting mat. So I've measured out two 90-inch pieces, and I need to run the thread through this wax. So the wax came with the kit, and this is supposed to help the thread to not tangle as much. So let's give it a go. Alright, I think I'm gonna give up on the plastic case thing, and I'm just gonna rub the wax on the thread. So there's 3 different needles in here. There are 2 different sizes of straight needles, and then there's this giant curved needle, and it says that you can use whichever needle you prefer, and I'm really tempted to use this giant curved needle because it is just so cool looking. Yeah, I think I'm gonna try it. Alright, my needle is threaded, and now I'm just gonna tie a knot somewhere near the end of my thread. Now, I'm gonna start with this shoe here. Alright, so now we just have to do a blanket stitch all the way around the shoes. It says to start kind of at this seam where the toe starts to overlap the heel. So I'm gonna just go ahead and do that. So I'm just gonna start the needle halfway down the sole of the shoe and then push it through and then up through the fabric. So I'm just gonna pull the thread through until the knot is up against the sole of the shoe. Now I'm going to make another stitch about 3/8 inch to the left of the first stitch, and just make sure that my thread is, this thread here, is behind the needle as I pull it up through the fabric. So then I'm just gonna pull the thread tight. Alright, so then you can see when I pull it tight, it creates this little L-shaped stitch. So then I'm just gonna do that again, another 3/8 inch over. Once again, making sure that this thread is gonna be behind where the needle and this thread comes through, and then I'm going to pull it all tight. And then I'm just going to continue doing that all the way around the shoes, basically. Okay, so I just wanted to mention really quickly, I figured out I was pulling the stitches too tight up here, so you can kind of see how up here I don't have, well, up here I have kind of some thread sticking out down as well as up, and the straight line is kind of in the middle, whereas this is how it should look with the kind of like a half square shape, so the straight part should be all along the top like that. So if you're pulling your thread too tight, it'll start looking like that. Oh, now I'm bleeding on my shoes. There's blood. It's a blood sacrifice. Alright, so I'm starting to see here that I'm pretty sure my thread is not going to make it this last little bit around. So I'm going to tie this off and then get another piece of thread, but I guess maybe I shouldn't have left such a long tail. I'm really not sure. It's just kind of confusing to me, because I did look at the sew along on her website, and it said that you could knot the thread even 20 inches in so that you would have a nice long tail to work with, but I think that was the wrong thing to do because now I don't have enough thread to finish it, so I think I'm just gonna cut a longer piece to be safe for the next shoe. But anyways, okay, so I'm gonna tie this off. So I'm just going to put it down through the fabric right next to where it has come up there. So I'm just gonna go down through the fabric and then out through the center of the sole. I think I'm gonna use one of these smaller needles to tie this off. All right, so I'm just gonna knot it to that stitch right next to it there. And then I'm gonna just push the needle through to hide the tail on the inside of the shoe, and then I'll just go in probably at the end and just trim off the tail inside of the shoe. You know what, I think I'm gonna use this piece of thread that I had cut for the other shoe because I'm going to be cutting a longer piece for the other shoe. So I'm just gonna go ahead and use this to finish this last little bit. So get my needle threaded, tie a knot, and keep on going. Y'all, this shoe is done. That is pretty exciting. Well, it's pretty much done. I just have to tie off my thread tail and then try it on. So that's exciting. So yeah, I'm just going to tie this off exactly the same way I tied off that area up there where I ran out of thread. So I'm gonna probably try this on because I can't help myself. And then I'm gonna go ahead and finish the other shoe, and then I will come back to you and show you how they look on. All right guys, the shoes are done. Wait, let me grab the other one. Here we go. Got two shoes now, and they are pretty cute. I'm pretty excited to start wearing these. As for fit, I think that they fit pretty well. The only thing is that the heel is a little bit loose, especially on the left shoe. And I think it's because in the instructions it says to take 3/8 inch seam allowance. So it says to come in 3/8 inch from the edge, which would be more like back here, all the way around. So basically I think I didn't take enough seam allowance, so that's probably why the shoes are a bit loose. And also I think that the left shoe is looser than the right shoe because the left shoe was the first shoe I did, and I don't think that I was making my stitches quite tight enough on the right shoe. I made them a bit tighter, and I think they're holding a little bit better than on the left shoe. So I think it's just a little bit looser. So, but for the most part they fit and they're totally wearable. Yeah, so for my first attempt at making espadrilles, I'm pretty happy with how they turned out, and I'm really tempted to make another pair and take the correct seam allowance and see if they fit better, or maybe try a different style. Anyways, so yeah, here are my very first pair of shoes, and I would totally recommend trying out this kit. It's pretty easy. Everything you need is there other than a sewing machine. So yeah, really happy with these, and don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.